Hi everyone, this is Dr. Abbas Malik and I am your instructor for the Flutter mobile app development. If you have not subscribed this channel, then please subscribe it so that you can get a notification of our new videos. So last time when we finish our last video in this series, then we finish at this point that we will be building this expense tracking application from scratch, where we have different pages. Then we also have the uh, nav bar, which is coming it, drawer, a navigation drawer, and then we will have different type of things. So for in to build this application, so we have first step is that we need to have the dependencies. We have already seen the local storage dependency that we use to save the data inside the local storage within the device. So rather than using that one, because we have already seen how we can use it, we will be using the shared preferences, which is another uh, package or the dependency or the what you can say, the library that help us to save the data locally within that device. And then we for the provider, so for the state management, rather than we will be using the provider, we will be using the Flutter river port. And then we also using some other libraries like intl, which is like if we want to convert the format from one specifically the date format from one from the specific date format, that if we want to convert into a, like, month, day and the year, or the day, year and month and year, so we can do that formatting into different type of the in national internationalized localization based on the place, based on the norms and so on. And then we also have the uuid. Uuid is more like generating a unique string or unique identifier for our if we don't provide want to have our IDs 1 2 3 4, we can, using the uuid, we can generate a unique string that can be used as a primary key for our identification of different records inside our code. So first of all, let me go to that what you can say, that open up that new VS Code. And then here we say shift control shift P, and then we want to uh, start a new project. So we say new project, it is an application. Then they are asking us to give us that where it will be. So we say that this is not here. Let me, yes, here. And then here we select the folder, and then we have that we want to have this because this is our lecture number 5. So I say lecture 05 underscore. So this is expense tracking, expense tracking. Let me see, king underscore app underscore river code. Okay, so I press enter, then it will create the basic application, the startup application for the Flutter. And then definitely it will contain that this library which is here. And then definitely we don't want to use, we just remove that one. And then rather than we are using this thing, we don't want this. So first of all, okay, so we what we need to do, we can just simply say that we want to create some scaffold. Okay, and then the error message will go away. Later on, we want to use uh, create a new page here, and then that is what we want to start at that startup page of the application. Okay, so first thing is what we need to do, we need to add these dependencies. Okay, so first of all, we need to open the terminal. Inside a terminal, we can run the command prop add, and then we have the shared underscore preferences. We also have the flutter underscore river code. Then we also intl, and then we also uuid, that these are the dependencies. So if we click on that, so you can see that it has added these dependencies into my YAML file, and then maybe we want to run the although it is not necessary, but maybe just to be on the safe side, we run the command flutter pub get. Okay, so we get these dependencies, so it will download the dependencies, and all these dependencies are available inside our project. So that part is done. The next part is that we need to create the models. Models is more like that what will be the structure of the or the data or the information that we want to save inside the expense. What is the information which we save in the category, and what is the information that we want to save uh, inside the tag class. So we have create a structure for that one. So let me quickly jump back to our, what you can say that the okay, where is my here? So here inside my project, I want to create first is the expense class. So I inside my lib folder, I create a new folder. We call it a models. And inside the models, I want to create a new file. We call it expense dot. Okay. And then inside, I want to create that specific file. And inside that file, what we have a class, and then its name is expense, and then inside this class I have some information, for example final string id. So that is the one thing. Then we also have final double, that will be the amount that belongs to that expense. And then we also have the final, we have a string, and then we say what is the category ID. Okay, so I mean we also have assign a category to that expense, and then what is the ID of that category. Then we have the final, and then we have the string pay, to whom we have paid that money or the expense. And then we have the string, and then we can say that we can write some note about that expense. Then we have a date time, and then this is a date on which date we have actually done that expense. And then we also have a string, we say tag id, so what tag we have assigned to this one. So if you look at that, it's because we are saying that this is the final variable. So when we they are final variables, we need to make sure that we have a created a constructor of this class that accept these values. So we want to make them the named parameters. So we say we have a required this dot id, and then we can say that we have required parameter that need to be provided to this one amount. Then we can say that we have a required this dot category id, and the here it is say that we should not be camel case, which to start with a small letter. So let's fix that issue as well. And then we have required, and then we say we have a pay, this dot pay, and then we have the required, and we say this dot note. So then we have the again required value, this dot date, and then we also have the required value, which is this dot tag. So we provided all these values. So this when we provided that constructor for this class, it automatically disappear those errors. The other thing that we want to put here is the I want to, as we have seen in the previous video, that we want to save this class values inside our local storage. For that reason, we need to convert that into a string, because inside the local storage, we can only save very basic information. Some primitive data types like string or int or double as a key value pair, or we maximum that we can save is the list of the string values. So if we want to save these information inside our local storage using the shared preferences or the local storage package, then we have to convert that class into a JSON string. So for that one, we need to write that map. And then first of all, what we are saying that it will be converted into we want to convert that into a dictionary, into a map. Okay, so we say to JSON, and then this function is actually going to convert that uh, the information which are present like id, amount, and the pay and not. We want to convert that into a map, so we say this function will return me a map, and then I just put add a semicolon, and then it will return me the ID, and then we say it will be the ID value, and then we can say that it will have the amount, and then it will the value of this key will be amount itself, and then similarly we have category ID, and the value is category ID, and then similarly we can say that we have a pay, and that value will be pi, and then we have the node, okay, and then the value is node itself, and then we say we have a date, and the value is date, and then we are converting that to, rather than we give them the date as an object, we are converting that to a string value. So it is converted into a string value because all, if we look at the others, we have the string, we have string, but this date value we cannot save directly inside the, so we are providing a key value pair, so the value should be, for this one amount is a double value, because we can save that amount value or the double value inside the local storage, we don't need any conversion, but we cannot save directly the date object inside our as a key value pair inside our local storage, so that's why we need to convert that into the string as well. So then we have a tag, and then the final value is also tag ID, so it should be the tag ID. Okay, so now we have written down a method which take the information which are present in the current object of this class, and then give back a key value pair or a map, okay, which has the key value pairs of the information which are present in the object of this class. The second function, the method that we need to create, is that we have a factory method which convert that is, I mean, which we in which we want to actually generate the from JSON, and then actually this method will take the map. This method convert the information inside the object and give back the map of this one, but this method will take the map of this type, the same type, that string comma dynamic. Okay, so for example, I say JSON, and then this map, it take the map and create the expense object for us. Okay, so we say return, and then we say we need to put the expense object, and right now you can see that we say JSON, and then we say ID value, so it will access the ID value like this one, the ID value, and whatever the value is, assign it to the ID variable here inside this expense variable. So then we have the amount, so we can just convert that one into this one, and then in the start we can put JSON, and similarly I can put JSON. Let me okay, so first of all let me put this around it, and then I put the bracket around it, then I put the JSON value, and similarly I can say, I can put the, first of all I can put the this one, and then we can say that we want to get this from the JSON map. Okay, then we also have the node. First we enclose these inside the single quotes and the brackets, and then I put the JSON value. No. So, okay, what is happening here? Okay, yeah, we need to convert the second part, not the first part. First part is actually representing the this one. So similarly for the date as well, so we also need to convert this thing, and then we have to convert that one. So the here, if I say that, because this is a JSON and this is actually a string, just like we have created, let me first finish that tag ID as well, then I will just explain you why we are putting these we need to convert that string JSON I mean, the as soon I save it, so when I save it, still there is some problem. We need to put the uh, at the end we need to put. So now the thing is, this date is actually a string which we have saved inside the local storage, and that is coming back from the local storage. So first of all, we need, because this date inside our expense is a date object, date time object. So we need to convert that string into a date time object. So how we can do that? So I just cut it from here, and then I say date time dot datetime.parse. We want to parse, and then we can give the string as well inside. So it will convert that string into a datetime object and save that inside the date variable that is inside the class. So now the first method give me a map which contain the key value pairs that we can save inside our local storage. And then the second one method is actually take the map which we have read out from the local storage, and then it will convert that into an expense object. So these are the two methods which are help us to save the information inside local storage and read them back and then convert them back into the uh, object of the expense class. So this is our expense class. So the second thing is that we need to convert, we also need to have the category model. So we say again, we say category dot dart. Okay, so in the category model, what we need to, again, we need to create a class. So we say class, and then it is a category, and then inside the category we have two things. One is a final uh, string id, then we also have the final, again, string name. So we have only these two values. Then because these are the final variable, so we have to make sure that we are generating these we make sure that it is a required field, this dot id, when we are creating the object of this class, and then we say required this dot name. Okay, so as soon as I do that, all the errors gone. And then the other thing is we also need to make this. So let me quickly, we say map, and then it will be a string comma dynamic map, and then that is going to be returned to JSON method, and then it will return a map. Then we say id, and the value will be id from this class, and then we have the name, and then the value will be name. So that will be returned from this map, and then we also need to convert that. We have a factory, then we have a category dot from JSON, and then inside this method it will be a map that is coming as an input using the string and the dynamic values pair, and then there will be a JSON, and then we can convert that. So we need to return a category, and then we can say that it should be like this, and then we say that it is coming from the JSON. And the same thing is true for the name, and then we need to put that one, and then we have JSON. So to put a semicolon. So now we have finished our class for the what you can say that. For example, when we are creating the ID value, so it is a possibility that rather than I use the ID value, for example, here, I mean, right after the category, we can also say that if the ID is not given, then we can say that, for example, if the ID, rather than I say make it required, I say it is a string ID or the string ID. This is more like what you can say that uh, parameter, but that could be like this. And then we are saying that id will be equal to id, and if it is not given, if it is not provided, then we can say that we say constant, and then uuid, sorry, id, and then we can say that v4, and then it will generate our id for us. So what we are saying here, actually, instead of making this id as a required field that should be provided by the provided by the method where we are creating the object of this category class. So rather than we say if the id is not provided, then we can use the uuid to generate that specific what you can say, that specific uh, a unique string that can be used an ID for that specific category. Okay, so if it is not provided, then it will be generated by the UUID, or we can just stick to that the other version, that where it is a required field, it should be provided. So in to be I mean so that is the one way to how we can generate the unique IDs for our category. Okay, so that is where we can use the UUID. The next model that we need to create is the tag. So we say again, create a new tag dot dart class, and inside I say class, and that will be a tag class. And inside again, we have the final, we have a string value, that ID, and then we have final. We also have a string value, which is a name, and then we also have the category not tag, uh, and then we need to provide the, so we say required this dot id, and then we say required this dot name. And then similarly we also need to have, so let me quickly do that. So we have the tag ones, and then it will also have the tag. So actually, yeah, so it will work for us. So we are saying that to JSON, so ID to the ID and name to the name, and then we also have the tag dot JSON form, and then we have a tag ID. We are reading dot one. It will create that one. So we are done with that. If you want to convert that ID to be generated by the UUID, then of course we can have the same structure like here as well, if we wanted to do that. Okay, so if we just go back to our slide, so we have created these expenses, the classes of models for the expense category and the tag. So the next thing is to create a local storage service that create that class that handle all the local storage read and write request. So we want to, we are using the what you can say, that we are using the local storage. So we come back to our project, and now what we need to do, we need to create a storage. So we again creating a new folder, we call it services. I mean right now it will be only one service, but we are just separating different type of the classes or different type of the code in from the others. So here I say we have a local underscore storage underscore service dot dart. So we are creating that new um, local storage service dart file inside our services folder. And here we want to create that class, and that will be our local storage service. And inside we want to specify a few things. The first thing is we want to make sure that if we are opening a connection between our shared preferences, then we don't want to open that connection multiple times. Just like if we have a database, we don't want to have multiple connections with that. So we only want to have a unique connection with that. Okay, so if we want to have a unique connection, to the one way to do that, we want to make a static uh, late shared preferences. So this one should be automatically coming from the from our, what you can say, that from our shared preferences library. But I first of all we say late, and then we have a shared, yeah, we are getting this one. So if you look at that, we have a shared preferences which is coming from the shared preferences lib. This one is also coming from there. Shared preferences, what is the difference between that? Yeah, shared preferences, and then we say underscore pref. So we are defining this static variable, and then we are saying that it is late. Late mean that we will initialize this variable, but later. So later mean that we are creating actually a what you can say that we are creating a static function here which return me nothing. It is a future and it does not return me anything, but it will initialize this shared preferences, that is async, and it will say that underscore pref is equal to await. Then we say shared preferences dot get instance. So we are getting this instance and assigning that thing to this variable. So whenever we are creating the object of this class and then we can initialize this thing, then because this is a static variable and this is a static function, they if we have, for example, 10 or 20 or 30 objects of this class, this local storage service class, then this preference or the preference shared preferences variable, it will be only one which is shared among all those 20 objects within that of this class. So it will be only created one time. Okay, so that is one thing. Then we also want to, we have three different type of the, we have expenses, we have category, we have tags. So we need to make sure that we can save these things. So first of all, I will say that I want to save the list of expense. So I mean, rather than I say a single expense, we are writing that we can write a multiple, the what you can say that the save expense list of the expenses, because we will not have only one expense, we have more than one. So we, rather than we save them in the separately expense, we are putting them together in one list of the expenses and then saving that list inside our local storage. So we can write the function like no, it will show future, it will does not return me anything, and then we say save ex expenses list. Okay, and then it will take a list of not exception expense. Okay, so if you look at that, it automatically have imported that model for me from the expense class, and then we can say these are our expenses, and we have this function. Now, first of all, what we need to do, we need to convert, we need to have a list of expenses, which is a list of objects. Okay, so we need to convert the objects into a list of maps. Okay, so how we can do that? So we can say final, we have a list of what you can say that map, and this map is actually is a string comma dynamic, just like the map which is being returned by this method here. So if this method is actually returning a string dynamic method, so we are saying that, and then it will be equal to this one. So we can say that we have the what you can say that uh, we can say JSON list, and then we can say that expenses. So we need to have that one. So we say map. So we are saying that, for example, we say it is an expense, and that expense will give us back the expense dot to where is it on? So we say to JSON method that we are going to use it, and then after that we are say we want to convert that to a to list. And once we've done that, so now what we are doing here, we are say we have used the expense list of expense objects for each expense object which exists in this list. We convert that into a JSON, and then we convert that into a toString and toList, and that is going to be saved here. So now the next thing is that we need to what you can say that we need to encode this list, this new list. I mean, for each list, we need to encode that and convert that into a string value, and then we can what you can say that we can save that one. So we say encoding the map into a JSON string. Okay, so how we can do that? We have a final, it will give me a string value as a return. So we say JSON string, and then we can simply say that JSON encode. So this method is actually coming from this convert with this the core library within the Dart or the Flutter. So that will convert that object, that is our JSON list. So it will convert that into a JSON string. And now once we have this JSON string, we can save that inside our, so we can say return, and then we can say await. What not We need to make that async method, because we want await, and then we say underscore prefs. We want to save that string, so we say set string. So we are setting that string. The first value, it should be a key value. So again, if we want to make sure that this key value is always the same, what we can do, we can come down here, we can create some variables here, final string. So we can say that I will just try to expense key value, and that will be whatever you want to do. For example, we have expense key. So it means that we are saving these information. So we can just simply say that expense key, and then the value is actually the JSON string that we have just created. Okay, so we have this thing. So we say list expense cannot be assigned. What is saying that? So cannot be assigned to the parameter type string. Okay, the argument type list expense. So we have the, okay, we expense key, not the expenses, that we have used before. So we are saying set string underscore pref. Still it is giving me cannot be returned from the method. The type of the bool cannot be returned from the method save expense, because it is returned the future void. Okay, so it is actually returning a Boolean value, so we need to fix that. Uh, so we are returning a Boolean value. It means it has been successfully, it will return the true if it has been successfully saved. Otherwise, it will return me false. Though we can check that value and then see that what happened if we have successfully saved or not. The second method that we need to write here is that we want to, what you can say, that we want to read the informations out of that local storage, and then we want to get back the list of the expenses. Okay, so this method will give me back a list of the expenses, and then we say get expenses list, and then of course this method will not take anything, and then we say we have a final uh, string. It could be the null value. The reason is that if the for the first time when we are trying to read thing back, this maybe this information does not exist over there inside our local storage, and if it does not exist over there, then it will return me a null value. So I say pref, and then we say get string. We want to get a string, and then now here we need to give that to. So we already have, say, expense key value that we are going to give here. So this one has, it will read that specific key. If it exists in our local storage, then actually it will return get that string which has been saved against that key value, and then give me back. If it is not there, then it will return me back a null value. So we can say that if we have the JSON string is double equal to null, then what we want to do, we want to return a null value, or maybe we want to return an empty list. Okay, and if it is not the case, then we want to convert that one. First of all, we need to decode the JSON string into into the map, this map string comma dynamic. So we need to convert that one back. So for that one, so we have a final, we have a list of then we can say that we have dynamic. Okay, and then we say JSON. We have this JSON. We define this variable list, and that will be JSON uh, decode. We have a JSON decode method, so we will give this JSON string to this one, and it will give me back a list of the maps. So once we have the list of this map, then we can convert, you know, converting the uh, list of map into the expenses or list of expense. Okay, so how we can do that? So we can say that we have a JSON list, okay, which is a dynamic one. Then we say we want to map, and then we can say that it is an expense, and then it will be converted into uh, expense. And then here we need to provide that uh, the value. So we say rather than using the constructor, what we are going to use, we want to use the from JSON, and then this one actually take that expense value, and then it will be as a map, and then it will be a string comma dynamic. Okay, and then we can put the and then we also need to dy. We need to make sure we are putting the right spelling, and then we can say dot to list, and then we can save. So if we come back here, okay, so now what we are doing here, we first of all we read the key value from our local storage, and if it exists over there, then it will give me a string of our JSON like maps. Okay, so once it is given, if it is not there, then it will be a null value. If it is a null value, it means that we don't have any that have been saved inside the local storage. Then it will return an empty string. But if we have something, then it means that first of all we need to decode that and convert that into a map and dynamic string map. And then once we have a list of this map, we convert that list of the map into the expense object using the from JSON method, which we have defined inside our using this method, which take the map of string dynamic and convert that into the expense object. That is what exactly we are doing it. And then of course, once we have created that, and we need to uh, return this string, this list of the expenses we need to return. And once we return it, it say that yes, now it is okay. So the same thing we need to do for the other what you can say that for the category list, for the, so we can also create the variables like just like I did here. I say that I want to create a category list on a category key, and then here we say category key. Then I also try to make one more copy here. We say here tag, and then here we say tag key. So everything, it is a final string which exists inside our this local data storage service. And then what I need to do, I just can save copy these two methods and then convert them into the uh, not this one. After this one, we want to do that. So now, first of all, I need to say rather than the expenses list, I say categories list. Okay. And rather than we have a list of expenses, we say category. And then here we also have categories. So first of all, we are converting JSON list into, rather than use the expenses, we are using the categories. Okay. And then it will convert that into the, I will say here, again, I say category, and then we also have the category. Okay, so we are doing that, and then we have the JSON string which is coming from the this list of the categories. We encode that into JSON string, and then rather than using the expense key, we are using the category key. So category key, it will save the information. The same thing we are doing here. So we have expenses list, so we say uh, categories, and then we also need to make sure we are putting the category here, though it is going to read the category key, and once it is done, if the JSON string is null, then return an empty. Otherwise, you can decode that thing. We don't need to change that thing as well. So JSON string list, okay, rather than I say expense, I say category. And then here, rather than I say category, so category, and then we say category. So it will convert that into a list of the categories, and that will be returned back. So now we have our categories save and the get one. The similar thing we need to do here as well. So we can say that we have the expenses. Rather than expenses, we are saying that we want to have the tags, and then this one will be a tag class. Okay, and then we have this map, and then rather than we say expensive, we need to say tags, and then here we also say tags. So inside the tags I say tag, here I also say tag. So it is converting that list of the tag into the map, number one thing. We are not missing anything here, yes. And then we are converting that JSON list into a JSON string, and then saving that inside our. So here, rather than using the expense key, we are using the tag key, okay. And then we have a JSON string that we want to save. The similar thing that we also need to change things here. So we have tags list, and this one is also going to return a tag. And then here, we rather than we use the tags key, we are using the tag key. So we read the information for the tags inside the JSON string, convert that JSON string into a list of the maps. If it is no tag key list exists, then we will return back the null, empty list. And then we have the JSON list, and then rather than we say it is a tag, and then here we are also using the tag, and then here we say tag. So tag is as a map, so it will return me back this one. So I think that we have all done inside. So we have the method inside our local storage. Number one thing, we will have make sure that only one preference, the shared preferences variable is created, because these static variables are shared among different objects of the same class. And then we are defining these tag keys, expense key and the category key. Then we are saving the list of the expenses. Then we are reading the list of expenses back from the local storage. Then we are saving the categories list inside this local storage. Then we are reading them back. So this is the local storage part. Okay, so if we just come back to our slides, so we say that create a local storage. Okay, added main method to initialize the method. So we also need to go inside our main method, and then we need to make sure that we are initializing this specific word. So we let's go back inside the main, and rather than I would say that our this method, the main method, I make it async method, because we need to have right main. So we are saying that widget, then we say widgets, Flutter, and then say binding, and then we say ensure the initialize. So we are ensuring that initialized. Okay, so everything, all the widgets and things which are related to that project, is must be initialized before we can start our application. And now we say await, we want to local storage service, and then we want to initialize that method. So we are actually inside this local storage method, local storage, we are calling this initialize method, which what you can say initialize the variable underscore prefs, or the shared preferences variable. It's initialize that thing. So once it is done, we can start our application. We don't need to worry about that. Okay. Okay, so we have initialized them. So what is the next step? So next step, the step number 4 is creating the provider. It means that we have created a provider class for each model, expense, category, and tag. And then we also need to make sure that our application actually know about that providers. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to come back here inside our project, and then inside our lib folder, we create another folder, and we call it providers. Okay, so these are the providers classes. So we can say that we have the category provider, we have the expense provider. We can say that we are saying that expense underscore notifier. Okay, dot dot. So when we say notifier, it means actually it notify if there's any change happened inside the inside our, what you can say that inside our state of that expense list, then it will automatically notify to the observers who are observing that one. So we need to create a class here. Okay, and then that will be expense notifier class, and then this is actually extends from the async notifier that is actually coming from the Flutter river code. And then we also need to tell what it is notifying. So it is notifying about a list of expense expense here. Okay, so list of expense, we need to do that. So once it is done, we need to override some methods here. That's why it is giving me. So it is say that create implementation of the abstract class notifier extend. So we need to do that. So we will see that. So the first thing that we want to notify, it is an I mean we want to override the build method. Okay, so this build method is actually a future. It will return me a future, and then we say future or. Okay, so we are, rather than we say future, we are implementing the future or. Okay, and then it will get me. Okay, so we will try to make the build method. So what's happened here? Let me override. We want to create a future or build method. Okay, yeah. So rather than I say this thing, we are going to create a method here that we are going to call. And what is that method? So first of all, let me create that method. So we have a future, and that will return me a list of expense, and then its name is load expenses. Okay, so it will return, it will load that, it will read the what you can say that it read the informations, not sync, it is an async. Okay, so it read the information from the local storage and send back that information. So we say final, we have a list of expenses, and then we say loaded expenses. Okay, so loaded expenses, so we can say that storage service. So we need to uh, say that we have a local storage service. So for local storage service, we need to create a variable here first, because we want to use that one. So we say final, we say local storage service. So this is our storage service, and that will be equal to local storage service. So we have already initialized that under the shared preferences variable inside the local storage. So we are creating the object of that one. And then now we can use that local storage, and then we can say get expenses. So when I say get expenses, it will save the information inside, and then later on I can just simply return the loaded expenses. Okay, so when I done that, so I can just complete return the other method, the build method. I say load expenses. So actually it will return me back this one. So we are writing that thing here. Okay, now using that local storage. So once we actually, what happened in this one, so actually this is the internal state of this class. Okay, list of expenses. So first of all, when we say the loaded expensive and it return me something, it build that internal state, and then we can, using that internal state, or the we can always, like you can say that access that state, which is actually the list of the expenses. And now we want to add things, we want to remove things. So we need to have those method inside this one so that we can change this list. Of course, in the beginning, that will be an empty list. It will have nothing inside it. So later on, of course, we want to add into it, and we also want to remove things here. And then at the same time, whenever there is a new things has the state of this list expense has been changed, then we need to make sure that we are updating that thing inside our local storage. So for that one, so let's start making the functions here. It will return me future, and then it will be void because we are working in an async environment, you know. Then we say add expense. We want to add an expense, and this will take as expense as an object. uh, Expense, and here we want to, first of all, we say state. Look at a state is equal to constant, and then we say async loading. So it will load that state here. So now we say try, and then we want to catch the e and st. So actually we have some state is equal to async, and we say error. Okay, async error, and then we can give the error. Okay, we have a stack trace e, and then we have the stack trace, which is the st. So once we have that one, so we have fixed that, we have cached. If there's an error, then we want to catch that one. So now what we want to do, so we have this current state inside this state variable, and then we want to check. So we say final current is equal to state dot value. And if there is nothing here, then we can just simply say assign that current value as a what you can say empty string or empty list. So we say final, then we say updated. So if we want to update that one, then what is we want going to do, we are going to add the, so we say current comma expense. Okay, so it will add that new expense inside the current one. Okay, so we have the current state. If this value is given, value is there. If there is something inside the current state, it means that this list of expense already exists over there, and then we can add a new one. If it is not, then we can say the list of expense is empty in the beginning, of course, and then we can just say whatever the current state, which is an empty right now in the beginning, and then we are adding that expense inside this one. So later on, what we can say that, so we can say state, the state of this, what you can say that the state of this expense notifier, we are saying that state is equal to async data, and then the data will be equal to updated. Okay, so updated list has been assigned to this state variable, and then now we can, once we have assigned that everything perfectly fine, we can say that we want to await, and then we want to say that we want to storage. Why it is okay? So the body is missing. Let me check. Normally causing a null, it does not return me anything. Okay, it is saying man, but anyway, so we are actually using the uh, storage, storage, storage service dot save expense list, and then we are going to give the updated list to save over there. Okay, so once we have this one, so first of all I need to make sure that this function is async so that we can use the await method over there. So now as soon as we are doing it, so everything is done, all the errors are gone. So now in this one we are say we want to get the state of the current state of this expense notifier class. And now we are checking that if the state has some value inside it. If state does not have any value, then we are assigning the empty uh, list to this current state. And then we want to add this new expense inside the current state. Once we have added, we assign it to updated state. And then we say state is equal to async data updated. So we are assigning that updated list to the state as a data. Okay. And then actually it will go into the value variable inside the state. And then we are also updating our local, updating our state, the list of expenses inside our local storage. So this is what we are saying. We are adding something. And then if we want to remove, then again we have the future void, and then we have the method name remove expense. And then we are also giving the expense variable here, and then it will be an async method, and then we are returning something. So first of all, again, we need to focus, we say state is equal to constant and async loading. So we are loading that state. Once it is loaded, again, we are say try. So again, we have a try, and then we can simply say that we want to say catch. It is going to catch E and error and the stack, and then we can just simply do the same thing here as well, async stack. And then inside our try, we want to, again, we say final, we have a current is equal to state dot value, and if it is not there, then we can just put a empty string here, or empty list actually. Then we have a final. When we have a updated is equal to, we have the current dot where, and then we are saying that the what we can say that expense, and then we can just simply say that if the expense dot id is not equal to that. Okay, we are also using the expense here, so we cannot use the same one here. So we say e, and if e dot expense is not equal to expense dot id, if it is not equal to this one, then we are going to keep it. Otherwise, we are, if they are equal, then we are not going to keep that one. So it means it will remove that specifically. Then we convert that into a to list. So this updated list will be if that expense exists inside our current list, then it will remove that one and created the updated list. And then after that, the same thing we need to do. I mean, we just need to update our state. Number one thing, the async data, and then we also update the local storage. Uh, so that is what we need to do. So this is what we can say, that we have created a expense notifier with the state that contains an expense list of expenses. And then we also create an object inside of the local storage that we are going to use to save these data inside the local storage or read the data from the local storage. So at the build, when we are building this notifier, when we are creating this notifier, then we say load expenses. So it will say list expenses, it will return me back this one. And then we say add expenses, so it will try to read the informations out of the state. And then we say current state to current state, then we have updated with the by adding the new expense inside the list of expenses. And then we are updating our state inside this notifier, and then we are saving the updated list inside our local storage. And when we are removing it, we get the current state, remove the expense that we want to remove, and then we update our current state, as well as we are saving the updated list inside the local storage. And then after that, we want to actually create a provider, that. So it is a provider, provider for the local, uh, I mean, expenses. Okay. So here we say we are creating the final, and then we say expense notifier, expense notifier, or we can say expense provider, whatever. I mean, notifier, expense provider, whatever name you want to sign. But here we say async notifier provider, and then actually it provide what it needs to say, that it is a expense notifier, and then the state is actually a list of expense. Okay, so this is what we have here, and then inside what we are doing, we want to create a notifier. So we are going to create this one. So we say uh, expense notifier dot new. Okay, and then of course when you save it, so let me check what is the problem here. Expense notifier provider. Okay, we are doing it. Okay, so we are putting we need to do that. Yeah. So okay. So when I save it, so now you can see that actually what I'm doing, we say async notifier provider. So we had this expense provider, and then we say expense notifier, create a list of expense, which is the state of this notifier, and then we are creating, and so we are creating a new object of this one and assigning that expense async notifier provider to the expense notify provider or the expense provider, whatever name of the variable do you want to select. We need to do the same thing for our expense for categories, and then we also need to do the same thing for our tags. So we have expense notifier. Now let me add a new class here. We say category underscore notifier dot, and then here if I just try to copy paste, or I can write it myself. So let's see, again we can write, so in the tag we will try to copy paste, but right now we will just try to create the class again. So again we say class, and then it is a category notifier, and that should extends the async notifier, and then inside we have the list of uh, category, and then it is automatically inserting, and then we need to say added override. We need to create the future builder, and we are going to call the return underscore load categories. Okay, so it will return the load categories. Of course we need to create that, so we say future, and then it will return me a list of category, and then we say underscore load categories. Okay, and this will be an async method, and this method will return me something. So we can say that final, and then we can say that we have a list of category, and that will be, so we have loaded categories, and that will be equal to the storage service. Of course we need to create that storage service first here. So we say final, we have a local storage service. So we say storage service is equal to local storage service. So we can use that storage service dot um, get categories list, and we can get that one, and at the end we can just return the loaded categories. So once we did that, so again we have read that. So now if I just try to, we have expense category, so we have written down these methods, add expenses and remove expenses. So we can do the same thing here. Let me copy it from here and then change it. So again, first of all, we want to, rather than the add expense, we say category. And then rather than I say this thing, we say category, and then it will be, we have a sync that will remain same, I suppose. So we can say that state, get the current state dot value. If it is empty, then show empty. Otherwise, we are going to category. So we will also say uh, category. So is going to add this category in the current state. That will become the updated state. So we update the state of the this notifier, and then we are also send the save expenses. So rather than save expenses, we say save categories list, and then we send the updated one. The same thing we need to do here, add category. So we have a remove category, and then we have category. We also say category. Then again, we, rather than I say expense, we say C, and then C dot ID is equal to category dot ID. Then we are not going to update it. And then similarly, rather than we say save expenses, we are going to save the category list, and that is an updated list. So that is all done. So now we need to create that object of this. So we say final. So here we say categories provider, and we that will be equal to async notifier provider, and then actually not here. So here we need to say that category notifier dot new. Okay. So once we have done this, now we need to tell our, not this one. So we need to tell our async notify provider that where is our async notify class. So this is actually a category notifier, and then we also need to tell that what is the state of our what you can say that the state of our what you can say that the information that we want to keep that in our state. So that is our list, and then we have the category, and then we need to provide that one. So once it is done, so this is also done. So let me copy everything from here, and then we can, maybe I can just don't copy this thing from here. I just try to, okay, let me copy everything from here, and then we make a new class for the tag provider or tag notifier. So we say tag underscore notifier dot, and inside I'm putting this one here. So rather than I say tag notifier, number one thing, and then here we say list of tag. So definitely we don't need to have this category part here, and then definitely we need to convert that into tag. We are loading the tags. Okay, so we need to change the name here, tags, and this is returning me a list of tags. This is also a tag, and then we say get the tag list. So we fix that thing. Then we are adding a category, so we are tag. Here we say also say tag, and then here we also say tag, and then we are putting a tag here inside the current state or updated state, and then we say save tag list. So it's all done. Then we can say remove a tag, and then this one will be also a tag here, and then this is also a tag, and then here I say t, and then I say t dot id is equal to tag dot id, and then we also need to save tag list. So that is also done. Rather than tags, we say tags provider, and then we can say that it will be a tag notifier, and then here we have the list of tags, and rather than I say tag notifier dot new. Okay, so we save all this, so we have done that part. So let me go back to the slides, and then we have the created the providers. Now we need to create the pages and the UI, and then how we can use that providers inside. Okay, so let's okay, because this video is getting longer. Okay, so this is I will put as a first part. So what we did in this one, so first of all we come down here inside our main, and then we didn't do anything here yet. And then first of all we created the models. We created the expense model, then we created the category model, then we created the tag model, then we come to the providers folder, and then we created the expense notifier. Okay, we have the expense notifier, which we have explained you step by step. Then we have a category notifier, then we have a tag notifier. And to make sure that our application knows about these tags and the notifications, then we need to make sure one thing, that we are giving the scope of these providers inside our main class. So rather than I say inside our main, when we are creating the application, so we can say that we have a, rather than this thing, I will say run application, and then we say have a provider scope. Okay, provider. Okay, I mean, let me check. We are running. Let me quickly do that. All the applications are, I mean, everything is gone. And then I say provider scope. Okay, and that actually should be coming. And then we say child, and then we can make this one that the provider name scope is not there. So provider scope is actually coming from our what you can say that the what you can say that it is coming from our Flutter. So we need to Flutter river port import, and we say Flutter underscore river port. Yes, we need to Flutter underscore river port, and then we put a semicolon that, and as soon as I did that, so we are that provider scope error is gone. So we have so far we created the models, we have created the providers for each type of the data, and then we are telling our application that this provider scope will tell our application that we have these providers available and that we can use inside our application. So in the next part, I will explain how we can build that UI where we are going to use these notifiers and the providers and managing the state and the things. We are adding the expenses, we are adding the category, and so on. So that's all for this video, and wait for the next one. So where we are going to actually implement the GUI to use all these things and save the information and retrieve the information from the local storage. So that's all for today. Thank you very much and have a good time, and see you next time.